Hello survivors, hello family and friends. This is Roy from Bootsy Sweetheart's Guide to Life and Other Disappointing Experiences with a very special part 2 video to how I made the quilt block for the Quilting Marine, Mark Darrell's community project. This is where I assembled the block. If you want to see how we picked the fabrics, how we planned the block out, please check out part 1 of this video. I hope you find this informative, and I hope you check out Mark's channel. Thank you. Oh, here we are with part 2 of the Patriotic Quilt project by the Quilting Marine. Please take a minute or two after this and look up the Quilting Marine, Mark Darrell on YouTube. As you saw in video 1, part 1, we've gotten to this point where we planned the block, we cut out the patterns, the templates, pick the fabrics, and now we're ready to go. But before we go, before we get going, I just want to share with you something that happened the other day that got my mind thinking about this even more. Is met a man who, coming out of the store, who had a little ribbon on his car, a yellow ribbon that said "Support our troops." So we got to talking about how we can support our troops, and he paid a couple of dollars for that magnetic ribbon. And I was telling him that there's so many organizations. We had given a gift of a cash donation to the Wounded Warrior Project for a person's birthday, and they were really appreciative. But all that money goes to taking care of our wounded warriors, both active and veterans. Many kinds of organizations out there. You know, we go to work in the morning and we come home, and one of our biggest worries is that we're going to get stuck in traffic. That is not so for our servicemen and women. So we can find ways to support them in greater ways than just buying a yellow ribbon for the back of our car. Anyway, let's get started. Here we have 3 templates is all we need for this. I cut out most of them in advance. What I do to make it easy is I chop, I give a lot of extra space here to make the template a little larger, even more than a little larger than what I need. And then I run, let me get the fabric out here, I run a bead of double stick tape, removable double stick tape, across the template, and that makes it stick a little bit so it doesn't move so much. So I just take the applicator, you can see the tape, and a piece of fuzz that got stuck. And I always iron the fabric before we start so that there are no wrinkles. It just takes away any of the chance for inaccuracy, because one of the purposes of paper piecing is accuracy. I love this iron, by the way. This is a Rowenta travel iron. It's been now serving me for, I guess, 2 years already. It does have steam, but I usually let the steam dry out, just in case I have like interfacings or adhesives that require no steam. Maybe I'll put up a link to where you can get that iron. I love it, love it, love it. So then all I do is I take the template and I put it on a nice flat piece of fabric. Nothing to it. You can see I even go further around. I chop it off. You can use the rotary cutter, my favorite rotary cutter, with the retractable blade, or you can take your scissors and chop it. There's no accuracy here at all needed. All you have to do is get an approximate piece of fabric. You'll see it in a minute. And those of you who are expert at this, I hope you just enjoy my take on these things. So put that aside. So now we have everything we need for the framing of our focus. And what I did here, this is the template for the center where the eagle's going to go. I had cut that out of just regular printer paper, but because I'm going to probably make more of these blocks, I decided to put it on some cardstock so that it's more durable. So I put it on cardstock and I cut it out, and I cut it out along the stitching line. So I have to remember when I start finding a fussy cut section that I've got to make sure that when I cut this out, I leave enough for a seam allowance plus. So this is more than a seam allowance, this just in case. Well, sorry for that. I don't know what's happening with my recording software. I use OBS with two Logitech cameras, and it's not behaving since there was, of course, an upgrade to OBS. So let me just repeat. If I were doing something very accurate, where I'd want all of the squares, like I had repeated blocks with the same square focus picture, I would put some registration marks in to make sure that the image is always in the same spot in each block. But we don't need to do that since I'm only making one block for this. And then I cut that out, you see, and now this becomes the frame for where I can fussy cut. Now I have my eagle fabric, and I sort of did a preview so to cut out some of the time here. This is the eagle that I'm zeroing in on. This is not so wrinkled, but I'll just run the iron over it just a little bit. Now, let's see, here we go. So, what I do, what you do, make sure you don't have a double-sided here, double fabric. Again, this is the eagle I want, and you can see, I don't know whether you can see that, there's plenty of fabric below the cutout because I need at least a seam allowance worth. Then what I do, oh, sorry about that, look at this. Well, if you saw the previous video, you know how clumsy I am here. Let's see, there we go. What I do is take a marker and make sure that that picture, the image, is inside the square, and this is the stitching line. I don't know if you can see that. I think you can see some of it. It's right here. I use these Frixion markers. I don't know if you've seen them. They're really wonderful. Here's a piece of fabric. You can write on it. See how that is? These are Frixion. Oh, it's all in Chinese. There's no directions in English. But these disappear really cleanly and quickly. All you have to do is hit it with an iron and it's gone. Let me do that again. I buy the big pack because it works for scrapbooking, any place where you want to mark and then have the marks removed. This works. Technically you can just rub it and they start to get fainter and fainter and fainter. I don't know if you can see that, but all I do is just hit it with an iron and it's gone. Frixion. If you're interested in these, I'll put a link. Kind of nice. Now, this is the stitching line. Let me put the template back on so it's clearer. I need more than, here we go. I need more than a seam allowance, just as a precaution. So what I'm going to do is use this template. I could use a ruler and just go out like a ½ inch, but I'm going to eyeball it. And I'm just going to cut. Again, accuracy for the cutting isn't so important. I have this thing about making sure I cut away from me. I never, ever, ever want a razor cut again. I had him years ago by mistake, not with a rotary cutter, but okay. Anyway, so now here's the shape. Here's the picture, and get rid of the beard. And now I'm placing this on the sewing line. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now comes the next part. We have to line up the sewing. I'm looking here. I had used that perforator tracing wheel and it worked out really well. Whichever side you choose to sew on, I just made myself a change. I changed my mind. All right, I'm going to sew on this side so you can see the lines. So what I want to do is, holding it in the right direction, is line up, and you can use a window, you can use a light box, but you want to line up the sewing line with the black line on the pattern, and you want the image to be facing out. So if I go and put it on here on this side where I'm not going to, so you can see I'm lining it up perfectly. Now you can pin it, you can put a little dab of glue, oops, came off here. You can use painter's tape. So let me just find out where triangle 1 is. I'm reading through here. There's 1, triangle 2 is here. Okay. So I am going to use some painter's tape. Put 2 or 3 pieces. Now, the next thing is piece number 2. And that's my little blue triangles. Now I know, because I put the line there, I know that's, I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a line here. I know that's the stitching line. So now I'm going to move this about 1/4 of an inch plus over, and I'm going to tape this down. Now this works for me. I don't know if everybody does it this way, but I do it this way. Now I'm going to turn it over, and see, here's where I said the The important thing is to fold these back. You'll see that in a minute. And I just double checked, and there's a little slight this can go a little further out, just a little more. What you want to make sure is that when you fold this back up, you don't have any empty space there. It's not going to look good. All right, anyway, you'll see as we go along. Boom, 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 boom. Here we go. Now, let me switch cameras for you. So here's this side. Ooh, is that close up? Well, maybe it should be close up. So here's that black line. For me, I start outside the template. And I have mine about 2 millimeters. You want to have a short stitch length. And all you do is sew on that black line. And that is it. Come back, remove the tape. Now doesn't it look sloppy here? Oops, I got to change the camera. Sorry about that. Yeah. Now you can see it doesn't look very even, but that's the benefit of doing it this way. You'll see. We fold this back. And I'm going to give it a little press. Some people we're going to catch it. Okay. Like to finger press. I don't. I prefer this. And then fold this back. Now here's the tricky part. Fold this on that fold line. Take your ruler. Now you see it's a little skimpy here, but that's okay. That's okay. And here's the 1/4 inch. I'm a little shy. And chop away. Now you got to be careful here. You'll see on the second piece, it's very easy to cut away the there we go. It's very easy to cut away this triangle or the other triangle if you're not careful and watching where you go with this. Now, here's the sewing line. You see it? Here's the sewing line. That's the stitching line. So I want to make sure that this is wrong sides together and well past that sewing line. Use my tape. 1, 2, 3. Go to the sewing machine. Make sure I change the camera for you. That didn't work. Oh, I see what I did. Okay. And now where it says number 3, make sure everything is flat. If it gets folded, you'll have to do some unsewing, which of course I've become an expert at through the years. That's that. Boom, boom, boom. Goes together really quickly. See? Here it is. I pressed it. A little skimpy over here, so I got to be careful the next time. Otherwise it'll be outside the seam allowance. And then again, fold it back. Make sure that paper folds on the line. Here is your seam allowance. Take the ruler. Mark your 1/4 inch. The 1/4 inch is on the ruler, and the ruler is on the stitch line. Now you can see how easily you can make a mistake here. So be really careful when you're putting this together. So this looks like this. And again, when you put this next piece on, the outer one, you'll fix this little dog ear. That comes next. All right, fast. See how fast we do here. Again, this is the sewing line here. I'm looking underneath it. Doing this. Make sure there's enough. Doesn't have to be perfect here because it'll all work out when you do the trimming. That's why we leave a little extra. I could have been a little more generous. I just noticed with the seam allowances, but that's fine. You'll see it works out fine. Here again, turn it over. Okay. Make sure everything is flat. Start a little outside of the pattern. And you notice I'm not bar tack. I'm not tacking it down. It's not necessary at this point. Ooh, that's a biggie. All right, that's fine. Plenty of meat left. Very fast. Press it down flat. Fold it over. Now, here is that example. If you don't fold this blue piece back, you're going to chop off your triangle. And you don't think it can happen. I've done it more than once. Here's the seam allowance, 1/4 inch. Chop, 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 chop. So, there. And look at how beautiful the frame is coming already. And it looks sloppy here, it looks uneven, but that'll straighten out with the last piece. Mark Darrell, who is the Quilting Marine, talks pretty openly. I hope I'm not saying something I shouldn't. Ooh, this is... Got to be careful here because there's a bit of generous fabric there. I'm going to leave this like this. I may have to pull it out, but I don't think so. But he was talking about PTSD. You know, PTSD is an awful, awful, awful condition. My dad was in World War II, and my mom would often tell us how he behaved when he came home. Whoops, 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 whoops. The tape came off. He was 4 years away. I don't know if the younger folk know this, but there were no breaks. He stayed away from home for 4 years. He was in 2 years in Italy and 2 years in the Sahara Desert in Africa. 4 years before he could come home. And he came home with battle fatigue, or they called it shell shock. We lived near, I still do actually, JFK Airport, which was Idlewild at the time. And my mom would often say that when the planes came over and they were very low, my dad would jump out of the bed at night and try to go under the bed. He was that terrified. I can't even imagine the horrors he faced and what he saw. So PTSD is nothing to make light of. It's an awful, awful thing, whether it's from military service or other life happenings. Anyway, he started to get over it, and it got better and better. Okay, here's this last piece, fold it back. Now this is where I got to be careful here, because this is where I taped it together. So you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to use the scissors to cut away the excess fabric. You can use the rotary cutter, but I don't want to cut the paper. Because of the way I taped it, the paper is double thickness there. Okay, so clip that off. Ta-doom! Look at how nice that is already. See? Very simple. Now, open it up. And you can see that because of it's a symmetrical design, it doesn't really matter that you follow the numbers, but I'll try to. So we should be up to 4, 5, 6. There we go. So let's go to 4. Here's the big one. Now I'm going to look for the seam, the stitching line. There it is. I'm going to put this on here. And it's just an approximate lining up, but you want to make sure you have plenty of room on the side of each triangle so that it's going to go into the seam allowance over there. You don't want to come up short. I love the tape. It makes it so much easier. And through the years I've found I have less blood on the fabric because I tend to stick myself. Okay, double check that everything is lined up. Press the foot down and away we go. Oops, that was a little wonky. Don't judge me. Now this is a little skimpy here, so I think what I would advise you to do is maybe cut them even a little bit bigger. I was very conservative so that I didn't waste a lot of fabric. These were fat quarters, so I don't have a lot of any one fabric. Again, I'm going to leave that there. Just turn this back, and you see the door gears. Now watch what happens to the door gears. Bye-bye door gears. It's 1/4 of an inch, and you can see I have much less than 1/4 of an inch over there. But when you put it together in a quilt, it'll be fine. Sometimes less bulk is better. Okay, got that one. I'm going to press it open. Really nice. And you can see why it's good to have the extra meat of fabric there. Take another one. Look for the seam line. Now this one's good. Good, 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 good. Line it up. And look at how this goes together so very quickly. Make sure everything is flat. You don't want to catch something that shouldn't be caught. And let her rip. I have and I'll probably repeat this almost every video. I have a straight stitch Juki home. It's called a home commercial. It's old. But it has a knee lift and it has an automatic foot thread cutter. Oh, this one's perfect. This one, the first one that's perfect. If you cut them out accurately, you can do this. If you use real, regular templates. So now I'm going to fold this back. Turn it over. Now see, this is what I mean. Can you see how that folded over? You got to really be careful. Let me press this because I didn't like the way that folded over. Okay. You want to really be careful that you don't catch something that shouldn't be there. and cut off part of the main piece of the design. Okay, this one's, oh, this was such a good one. And guess what? We are almost done. Here we are. Take this over. Press it open. And now we are on the last leg of the project. I'm apologizing in advance before I edit this, but there's some kind of something going on with the software. I'm going to have to reinstall it after this, but I didn't want to have to redo this whole video. I hope you got everything you need to get out of the way I do paper piecing on one of the ways anyway. And look, here we go. Just double check because yeah, this should be fine. What I'm doing is making sure I'm folding this back on the stitch line, which I don't know, you can't see that, but I'm right here folding it back on the stitch line, making sure that this is a good seam allowance, this piece here, see? Okay, turn it over. Now, of course, I had to make sure that this is not making sure that this is all flat. Okay. And the tape came off. So, let me redo that. That's why it's good to check. What happens with the tape, and you really probably should use some new pieces often, is the tape gets stuck on the plate of the sewing machine on the table, and you wind up losing the tape. You don't want to do that. Okay. I don't need any more tape because this is the last piece. Make sure everything's flat. Press the foot down, gas to the pedal, and away we go. Okay. I think, oops, I may have gone through this without having made a mistake. Let's see. Okay, now I'll press this down. A lot of people just finger press this. I'm a little fussier, so fold back that last fold. Put the ruler on the 1/4 inch mark and make sure the 1/4 inch is on the stitch line. Cut. Now there's a dog ear here that we can get rid of, but you'll notice we'll get rid of that when we trim it up to the seam allowance, the cut line here. Now wait, that's a 11. So I'm going to cut on, here's the 1/4 inch. Okay. Here's the 1/4 inch line right here. And there's a dotted line that the pattern produced. And all you do is whack it away. I sound like Eleanor Burns, right? Whack it away. And here's another side. Clean it up. And whack it away. It's stuck a little. And because it's stitched to paper, it's pretty stable. You don't have to worry too much about the bias. Triangles, you know, are notorious for problems with the bias. Okay. But you've got it all stitched down to a foundation, which helps a lot. And chop, chop, chop. If you ever get to watch Eleanor Burns, she's a hoot. If you haven't seen her, Google her. She was really a pioneer in the strip quilting world, and look at how fun this was. I mean, I like every part of this. I like the making of the template. I certainly love the finished product. I leave the paper, this is for me, I leave the paper on even when I'm putting the block together. I only take the paper off when I'm done assembling it. Just like to be sure that there's enough stability. And all you do, because we perforated those edges and folded them back, this just comes right off. And this is why paper piecing is so popular. See how fast that comes right off? I'm going to leave the outside ones on simply because if I decide to put a border, I'd like to have the stitching line there. I don't want to remove that at this point. And again, because we used a short stitch length, mine was 2 millimeters, I think, and because we perforated the paper, it comes off so very easily. I mean, no effort at all. It would be nice if we had some kind of lighter weight paper, but in the same regard, in the same respect, you want to make sure you have enough firmness in the paper. Now this is where I had that seam, so it's going to be a little, and if it really gets tricky, see, this is because I have because there's 2 layers of paper. Right here there's 2 layers of paper, so it's where that Scotch tape and seam was. Anyway, it comes right off once you get started, and here we are. Finished. I'm gonna leave that on. So, thank you, Mark, and thank you, Yvonne, who I referred to as her sister Tracy in the other video. Sorry for that. It can get confusing. My brother and I married sisters, and I'll leave it at that. I won't even go into that. But here is my tribute to the Quilting Marine's Patriotic Quilt Project. I was so very proud to be part of this, and it's giving me some brand new motivation. Thank you, Mark. And for those of you who want to see how we got to this part, please look at video part 1. Please subscribe. Please give thumbs up. Please share with people who are crafters. This is just a wonderful, wonderful community. In the words of my TV sewing mentor, bye for now.